spring is to do the whole house.
Yeah, now it won't be dark.
2 times and they caught the first fish yet.
Better than having
I was in St. Thomas.
Well, it'll darken up some as it sets
Married
up.
Kathy.
Be great if you got a.
She caught a
Get
barracuda.
me by, that'd be perfect.
I'll bring you.
Only fish that was
Yeah,
caught
I'll
all
give
day.
it to you, Bubba.
That sucker was about that long and had a mouth on it about that long.
That's fun to do out
It
there.
had to have a million teeth.
Just trying to figure out where.
Just like rays.
Y'all ready? We'll call the meeting to order and welcome everyone here this evening. Hold on one second. All right. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Public comment? I don't believe we had anyone.
We ain't got any public.
Okay. Consent agenda?
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Made and second. All in favor? Motion carries. Moving right along. New business. Finance presentation. Marcus Kinraid.
I'm just going to introduce Marcus real quick. Mr. Marcus Kinraid from the Wake County Revenue Department. He's Revenue Director. He's here tonight to present the results of the recent revaluation that occurred. You probably all received notices, your new value about 3 or 4 weeks ago. He's going to explain the results countywide. I won't steal all his thunder, but just to review, this is done every 8 years. A minimum of every 8 years is state law. Roughly about 360,000 properties in Wake County were reappraised. And this is just residential and commercial, personal properties such as vehicles, boats, things like that are done annually. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to him. And there we go.
Thank you, Bob. I thought you said you weren't going to steal all my thunder. He pretty much gave you the whole presentation, so this is going to be the fastest meeting you all have ever had. My name's Marcus Kinraid. I'm the County Revenue Director. I've been with the county for going on 14 years now. As you're all aware, we just did a 2016 reappraisal. It's the first one we've done in 8 years. It's been a very interesting 8 years between 2008 and 2016. Go through this. I'm going to slow your meeting down a little bit. This is got quite a few numbers and whatnot. If you have any questions, feel free to stop me and ask. I think Bobby covered this already. We just reappraised 360,000 real estate parcels in the county. 8-year cycle. Wake County's been on an 8-year cycle since 1976. The general statutes were revamped in 1976. Every county was assigned a year that they must do a reappraisal. 1976 was the first year for Wake County, and we've been on an 8-year cycle ever since. The county commissioners can choose to shorten that cycle if they wish. They could do it every 6 years, every 4 years. They could do it every year if they chose to, but they have not chose to shorten it to this point. So we're required to do it because the law says we must. Simple as that. And the purpose of doing a reappraisal is to reestablish equity and fairness in taxation between parcels. Parcels they typically will increase in value. We had not really seen them decrease in value until the middle of 2008, but they will increase or decrease in value at different rates depending on what type of property it is and the location of the property and the condition of the property. So again, what's included is all the land in Wake County, residential, commercial, and exempt, and the structures on the land. What's not included is everything else. Everything else is personal property, registered motor vehicles, aircraft, boats, mobile homes, and then public utility property such as Progress Energy, PSNC, rolling stock, freight lines, things like that. Those are public utilities. Those are appraised every year by the State Department of Revenue. For the 2016 reappraisal, we reviewed roughly 100,000 properties in the field and 195,000 from the office. We don't have enough staff, and it would cost an astronomical amount of money to appraise every property in the field, so we have to be selective on what we're reviewing. And typically what we will review are residential parcels that have some age to them. 15 to 20 years typically we'll go out and review those neighborhoods, or if they're not in neighborhoods, if they're in the rural areas, we'll review them in the rural areas. And the reason we're doing that is to make sure that our data is as reasonably correct as we can get it regarding the characteristics of the property, and then also to analyze the condition of the property. Has it been well cared for, or does it have deferred maintenance issues that we can take into account when we're doing our initial evaluation? We're spending a little bit less money this time. We anticipate spending about $7.1 million for this project, or $19.72 per parcel, as compared to $9 million for the 08 project. We spent more money replacing our software. Prior to 2008, we've been able to maintain and keep that software operating, so that's the biggest driver for the cost savings. I put this together to try to show you a picture of how the market has changed starting in 1992 compared to our assessed tax values. So the graph shows the relationship between our assessed tax values, and then the green line is 100% fair market value. And what I've graphed is the median sales ratio. And a sales ratio is something we utilize heavily in the property tax office. It's simply the tax value divided by the fair market value sale price. So if the ratio is less than 1, that means that the sale price is less than the tax value. That's not normal. Typically, what we've experienced is the tax value being less than the fair market value. That's what we experienced prior to 2008. So in 1992, the county did a reappraisal, and the reappraisal reestablished the median sales ratio at 100%. So on this graph, you can see in 1992, the blue line was at the green line. So our tax values on the median sale were 100%. As we proceeded beyond 1992 up till 1999, the market was appreciating. The relationship of our tax values to the market was declining. So by the 7th year of that cycle, our median sales ratio was 73%, or the tax value was roughly 73% of the fair market value of a property. Our 2000 reappraisal is the dotted line. It simply brought the relationship of the tax values back to 100% fair market value. Going beyond 2000, we were still in an appreciating market, so our tax values began to fall as compared to 100% fair market value. By the 7th year of that cycle, in 2007, on the median sale, the sales ratio was 81%. So the tax value was roughly 81% of the fair market value sale. So here's where we went following the 2008 reappraisal. The first 6 months of 2008, values in Wake County continued to increase. But in July, the recession set in, and we started to see fair market values of properties declining. At the end of 2008, we were still at 100% fair market value, the tax values compared to the market. So that yellow line basically is a skid. We were at 100% when we started the year, we were at 100% when we ended. 2009, 10, 11, and 12, the market values in Wake County were falling, so our tax values were exceeding the fair market value on the median sale, and that ratio went above 100%. Now I can tell you, I made that red for 2 reasons. That's not good. And property owners do not like it at all when their tax value exceeds what their opinion is of the fair market value. They don't like it. We had a lot of appeals in 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. Property owners who purchased a home where the tax value was higher than the purchase price, or who built a home where the tax value was higher than what they paid to construct it. A lot of appeals, and that's something that is not appealable, the market after the reappraisal. We basically lock in the market based on the schedule of values on the effective date of the reappraisal, and we can't look beyond it. So a lot of those property owners that were upset and appealing were not satisfied when we did not adjust their values. As we proceeded beyond 2012, the market began to improve, began to correct itself. So we've been in recovery mode since roughly the middle of 2012. The market values are increasing. They've once again started approaching where we were countywide as of January 1, 2008. So as we sent out our reappraisal notices for 2016, countywide, market values had almost totally recovered to where we were on January 1, 2008. This is just another view of that. The red line is the median sales ratio from 2008 to 2015. The blue line is our fair market value sales for residential properties. So what you can see is an inverse relationship. The dip in the blue line is the depths of the recession around the beginning of 2012. The peak of the red line also correlates with the peak of the recession around 2012. So you can see the relationship between the market and the tax values. It's an inverse relationship. So for Zebulon, the results of this reappraisal for the entire jurisdiction is a 4% increase, and that was driven by commercial property. Holistically, for residential property, we saw a decline in Zebulon of 6% from 2008 to 2016. The county as a whole, the entire county, residential property was flat. Commercial property was up 19%. So countywide, property values were up 5% as a result of this reappraisal. If you want to compare that to prior reappraisal projects, you can see the 1992 reappraisal, the percent change from the project was 43%. In 2000, it was 43%. 2008, it was 40%. For 2016 is 5%. Total parcel count is striking to me. In that 24-year period, we've gone countywide from 165,000 parcels to 360,000 parcels, more than double. Another thing that's striking to me in that 24-year period, we went from a total value for real property countywide of $21 billion to $118.3 billion today. So tremendous growth in Wake County. To show you how all jurisdictions fared for this reappraisal, here's that. Shows the residential change, the commercial change, the overall change. Some jurisdictions fared better than others from the commercial aspect, and that was basically totally driven by apartments and hotel motel. And then here's a heat map showing residential values by township. So townships in southwest Wake increased the most as a result of the reappraisal. Township 14, which is in the extreme northwest portion of the county above Falls Lake, fared the worst. I mentioned this before. This was the drivers for the commercial property changes in value, apartments, and then hotel motel. Apartments have really sort of gone bonkers, for lack of a better term, in Wake County in the past 3.5 years. And then as a result of this, because the changes that we've seen were driven more by commercial value rather than residential value, we're seeing a shift to a certain extent in the tax burden between residential and commercial value. So for Zebulon, prior to the reappraisal, your base was roughly 60% commercial. Post-reappraisal, it's now 64% commercial. Countywide, prior to the reappraisal, the tax base was 28% commercial. Post, it's 31%. Now, what I'll say about commercial is that most of it will probably be appealed, and we'll have to work through that process. But there's big money to be made by attorneys and tax reps in the commercial world, so most of your big commercial properties will be appealed. And we'll just have to work through that process, and hopefully we can get an idea of where things will end up before you wrap up your budget process and set a tax rate. And then also, I mentioned there was a slight shift in the tax burden from residential to commercial. We're also seeing a slight shift in the tax burden on the residential side off of what I consider luxury homes, properties valued above $750,000, to homes valued lower. So what I did here was I grouped residential properties by their price point. Less than 200,000, 200,000 to 400,000, 4 to 750, etc. And then I showed the percent increase or decrease of those property types countywide. So you can see properties, residential properties valued over $1 million, countywide, they're down 5.4%. Properties valued lower than 200,000, countywide, they're up 1.5%. So there's a shift in the tax burden there also. So what we do in a reappraisal is we do our work based on fair market value sales. And as time goes by, tax values get out of sync with the market. So what I've showed you here is 2014 sales by jurisdiction. So for Zebulon, there were 90 fair market sales in 2014. And I showed you the relationship, the median sales ratio, to the 2008 values. So on the median sale in Zebulon, for 2014 sales, the median ratio was 107%, meaning that median sale, the tax value exceeded the 08 value by 7%. And you can see a lot of jurisdictions were out of sync with the market prior to the reappraisal. So after the reappraisal, here's the 2015 sales compared to the 2016 values, 101 fair market value sales in Zebulon, and the median sales ratio is 100%. We try to get that median sales ratio as close to 100% as we can. And then there's a new statistic there, COD. That's a statistical measurement that we utilize to measure fairness. It's called the coefficient of dispersion. So it measures all sales in the data set. So for Zebulon, there's 101 sales. Only one of those sales is the median sale, the middle sale in the ratio. So what we do then is we take the other 100 sales, we compare their sales ratio to the median ratio, and the COD tells you a percent miss. So for all the other sales in Zebulon that are not the median sales ratio, they're within 5.8% of that median ratio. So that's a measure of fairness and equity. We try to keep the COD under 5%. That's our goal. Industry standards say 10% is good enough, but we try to have that because we have so many sales in Wake County. And then here's your real property tax base before and after the reappraisal. So you were at roughly 534 million prior to the reappraisal and 556.6 million after the reappraisal, roughly a 4% increase. So on December 7th, we sent out the notices. Starting on December 8th, we started what we call the informal appeal process. Our office is open and receiving appeals. New for the 2016 project, we have an online option for property owners to appeal. As of this morning, we have received about 5,000 appeals, and about half of those have been filed online. So I'm pleased to be getting that many online. If we get online appeals, we can process them faster, and we don't have to deal with storing all that paper. So it saves taxpayers money in the long run. If we cannot resolve property owners' concerns at the informal level with our staff appraisers, they have the right to appeal to the Board of E&R, the Board of Equalization and Review. And those members are appointed by the Board of Commissioners to hear formal appeals. Historically, that has been made up of former county commissioners, but we are sort of running out of a pool of former county commissioners who are willing to do that. So at this point, we are seeking anyone and everyone who might be interested in serving on the Board of Equalization and Review to let us know. And we have a link on our website for those who might be interested. It's definitely not what I would consider a glamorous job to sit in a conference room and hear people appeal their property tax values all day, but you learn a lot about people. It's an interesting process. And then, of course, you'll be asked to adopt a tax rate as part of your fiscal year 17 budget, and I'll be working with your staff. You do have to compute and publish what's called a revenue neutral tax rate in a reappraisal year, which I'll be working with your staff to help them compute that and get through that process. So here's our phone number and our email address if anyone has any questions or concerns about anything. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Okay, questions?
The appeals process, how long does that go on?
For 2008, we had 28,500 appeals. And we worked through those until the middle of October of the following year. I don't think we're going to have near that many appeals this time, just based on what we've received so far. But I think we will be working on that at least through July.
Where do you get your sales data from, your comparables, when you're doing these evaluations?
We have access to every deed for every property transfer that comes through the Wake County Register of Deeds website. There's an excise tax that has to be paid, which is based on the sale price, so we have that information. So every deed transfer that we record in our property tax records, we also record the fair market value purchase price. So we have access to that every day.
Do you actually get comparables and comparative properties when they come out or not?
Our CAMA system, our computer-assisted mass appraisal system, does a really good job. We define a neighborhood. So if there's a neighborhood that's like and similar properties, we'll draw a polygon or a neighborhood around that those properties, and then we will group those, and our software will show us the statistics of all the fair market value sales in that neighborhood any way we want to look at it, so we can compare similar properties in the same neighborhood.
Who actually does the field appraisals? I mean, is it your own people and their credentialed appraisers, or?
We have 14 staff appraisers. 3 of them are commercial appraisers, the rest are residential. And then we brought in 16 contract appraisers from a company called Pearson Appraisal Service, who's assisted us for the last 2. And mostly what we do is we turn over our day-to-day work to the contract appraisers. So they will be out measuring new homes under construction, capturing that data, putting it in our system, and we turn our staff appraisers to doing the reappraisal work. They live here, they're familiar with the market. They may be assisted to a certain extent by the contract appraisers, but the bulk of the work is done by our staff appraisers. Some of them are licensed fee appraisers, most are not.
How do you treat property that's developed between appraisals?
So if a property hypothetically was constructed in 2012, we have to put it on the books as if it was being constructed on the effective date of the last reappraisal. And we use the market rates, the rents, whatever, that were in place as of the effective date of the last reappraisal. So we basically have to ignore current construction costs, and we have to ignore current sales prices. And that's really, that's part of the thing that made the recession in 2010, 2011, 2012 so hard, because it's hard for people to get their mind wrapped around the fact that they just built a home and it cost $300,000, but we're going to put it on the books at $350,000. It's something that just doesn't make sense to people.
Well, let's suppose something was built last year. Is that in these numbers that you put up?
We will pick, if a property was built, let's say it was finished in July of 2015, our staff will go out there and measure it probably right around now. We'll put it in our system, and then it will be valued utilizing the January 1, 2016 schedule of values. So it might not be there yet because we haven't picked it up yet, but it will be.
I mean, we've had a lot of recent construction commercially or industrially,
Right.
and I didn't know if that filtered into these numbers or not.
For Zebulon, because it's a smaller jurisdiction, and I know you're building some big projects, the data center, for instance, we try to pick that up as soon as we can because it makes a big difference. So the data center is in there. I can tell you that. I can also tell you it's going to be appealed. So,
I'm sure,
yeah.
Well, Glaxo is doing
Right.
an expansion about the same size as the data center, so. Okay. I just didn't know how those numbers filtered over
Yeah.
what I was seeing
Yeah,
here.
you know, I've been communicating tax base estimates to Bobby and your staff for a long time, and I sort of have committed to mind the size of all the jurisdictions and how much value will make a big difference in your budget process, so we try to get out and pick all that up as fast as we can. Whereas if it's Raleigh, you know, they've got a $52 billion tax base, it's not going to make much difference.
Right. Okay. Other questions? Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is a request actually that I put on the agenda for us to adopt a resolution in support of the Connect North Carolina Water and Sewer Bond. Actually, I think the data enclosed pretty well explains it. The league has adopted support of the executive committee because we don't have the board meeting until next month, but the executive committee adopted support for this, so I was asking our board to do the same. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer.
Make a motion, we adopt resolution 2016-07.
Second?
Made and second. Are there any comments or discussion? Not, all in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Thank you very much, appreciate that. Board comments. Dale, I'll start with you tonight.
I don't have anything.
Don?
Just wishing everyone a happy holidays and great New Year's.
All righty. Joe?
Just want to point out some great work that our staff has done. This is our latest effort in community outreach and engagement. It's a wonderful calendar that's been put together, and there's some useful information here on a monthly basis. A specific example being when we have recreation signups like baseball, they'll be on this calendar just as a reminder. But the thing that really also stands out to me is just we've got some great pictures in here about civic engagement, about some jewels within our community, but also just the dedicated staff that work so hard to work for our citizens. So anyone that's interested in this, they come by and they pay a water bill, they come by our planning department, pick up a permit, or if they just want one, give us contact and we'll get one to them.
All right, very good. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We're adjourned.
You can get back out in the cold weather.
You take copious notes.